Brand new all online motocross training, fantastic package come together courtesy of CD Photography and some other great supporters along the way like Yamaha, Michelin and Fox. So back to our racing here at trackside after our extended breaking, but really keen to update our field number 17. Certainly one of our hot shots for the lineup. We'll see him perform, I'm sure, to super successes he's competing with racing as well today. So let's see what we've got in store for this group. 17 for Cole Davies, might have hit some good pace out there, but there's plenty of others to join them. Really welcome our team on board at this one. So local man Cody Griffiths, Ruben Smith, Nixon Parks, Lewis Bushett, just some of our hot shots from racing earlier, using that peripheral boundary of the Thingamacoon as we've outlined. Certainly some much heavier rain than we've been used to seeing here in Taupo in the last few years. In fact, some of the boys saying that for that amount of rain in 10 days was close to record kind of rainfalls here in late June, early July. But certainly you can see by the level of the lake that we're well overdue for it. So great to know that we've been still able to race moto today, even though the conditions haven't been as what some would have liked to have seen the amazing challenges. But as Bevan outlined before, we want to make it a track for the competitive and a track for the novices as we celebrate our sport. 17 to go with Cole Davies, and Cole whipping it up out there in fantastic good form. And checking on Ruben Smith, one of our HPC. You can pick up our HPC team members and their pink fluoro top, so stand out as far as the school's concerned. You always know where the HPC team are. And Ruben Smith, the young man from Drury out of HPC, holding on to a very good second place. Cody Griffiths, local star, and out of Taupo Junior Tier, local one of two local high schools here in Taupo. And he shots up to third place along with Chase Smith as well. So not just about the winners, but about the anticipation as well. Conditions looking absolutely picturesque. Slight little bit of cloud cover to the southern end of Lake Taupo here, so that don't get the picture shot of Ruipei as we often have in the past. But what we can see around here in a lot of the silhouettes of our CTAS live footages, of course, Mount Tauhara, and of course it's just 10 days ago where the snow nestled on the top of Tauhara, giving us an idea of how close it got here in the middle of winter. But beautiful sunny day today. Might be a little cooler in the breeze, but nothing wrong with that. 19, and just spotted Ollie here in the field, just going past, the man out of Tararua College, joining our lineup. But it's all the Oriwa College man here in the 17, and Cole Davies as well. Do our best to update the entire field, and neat to watch 192 with Ruben to go past. So Ruben Smith for that very good second place. Nice run through there for our top group as we see Cody Griffiths for the third, and keen to see that whole run, including people like Troy Lee de Villiers and Luke Eads, and a bit of bad luck that we had Ollie there, but I'm sure he'll be trying to make up for it. It's Chase Williamson and Nixon Parks, Fletcher Chalmers, and these guys, of course, the whole story to tell is all about their school, of course. So it's not a matter of just saying where they're from and what club they might represent when it comes to the battle of the clubs, where the clubs are scoring. It's all about their school scoring here today. So you have Ariwa, Taupo Nuiti, Hauraki, Tauramudu, Napier Borders, New High School, Rotorua Lakes, Kura High, Sacred Heart, and Tararua College, just to name but some of those amongst our top 10 of this field already. So good to see. And of course, the other lineup for this is 12 to 14, 125. Now you can have a big bore 85 in this class as well, so some riders may opt to do it, but most of them will be on 125 two-stroke motorcycles. Still the world's most dynamic motorcycle, and long-time favourite amongst up-and-coming riders. So there we go. 1, 2 and 3 to look at the landscape of our riding, giving you an idea of this beautiful volcanic plateau and the super soil that it is to go playing on motocross, and Taupo's Thingamacoon Park unfolding a spectacular circuit here today in these great conditions. Legendary track builder Mr. Murray Knight doing another classic when it comes to moulding into the shape, and having had all that extensive rain, wind, and lately, of course, frost as well. We find this groomed paradise of the motocross track here for our enjoyment today. New Zealand Secondary Schools Championship unfolding with this 12 to 14, 125/250. So effectively, these riders at this age can choose their weapon. And we talked about that it is up to 125cc, so we do have some of those that might be trying to get an extra class and riding it on their 85, and of course also those that do it on a 250cc machine. Also, to acknowledge others in our field that we've talked about, I want to welcome Robert Darth and Jay Jordan and AJ, of course, a man out of Harvard High School. I think it's going to be one of the neat features we're going to look at the end of the day. You potentially you're going to find that we're going to have winning high schools here today that might not otherwise win other significant national secondary schools sports competitions, as it's not just, of course, about having a big population base and having a good volleyball team or badminton or whatever sport you're playing. Of course, for motocross, in a lot of cases, is actually a rural-based environment, so chances are some of our smaller schools could perform here today. And of course, HPC in winning our debut North Island event, a good example. The HPC, the little school out of Napier on the Hauraki Plains, just a cracking example of motocross. More than just a sport, it's a family, it's a fundraiser. The events that they run are exceptional, and in particular, of course, for the fact that they've got their chosen charity of breast cancer, and that's why you'll see them wearing their pink support apparel. Pink's their colour of choice, and no matter whether it's the guys or the gals, they're all lining up to support a great cause. And they do some fundraising and recognise that as motocross that can play a significant role both in the sporting endeavours, but more importantly in the welfare of their community, which they're so proudly part of it. HPC, Hauraki Plains College, just another of our great schools in action. Well, early points in this case going to Arriva with Cole Davies out there. HPC and Ruben, they're picking up the top slots as we're focused on the schools here today with this 20-plus rider field that we've got. And keen just to look out for Taupo Nuiatia, Nixon Parks in there out of Te Awamutu as well. So there you go. And Te Awamutu, there's another good example of a rural-based high school that I'm sure will show up well in moto terms when it comes to putting the results together from today's racing. Right, 219.309, more of our riders to get through there. The 192 of Lewis Bushett outside of Wanganui's Chase Williamson, Fletcher Saunders, Harbour AJ Jordan, Robert Diarth, welcoming Hawke's Bay's Charlie Shaw, and also out of Naked Boys is Deacon Mellon's Henry, and Deacon keen to pick up the racing for a school today as we look out to Luca Fogarty out of Campion as well. So we've got the East Coast as well as the West Coast, and all points in between. Might be a New Zealand schools competition, but not sure how many South Island schools have been able to make it to join us this year. And we hope that this event will grow, and we might have, of course, South Island clubs to host this event in the future. Certainly hope that's going to be the way, and maybe some North Island clubs doing fundraising and sending teams down there, no different to what you might see with other codes of sport that play a national tournament alternating amongst main centres and the likes. Of course, one of the key features of this is that generally with schools motocross based around a motocross circuit as such, and not necessarily just those that might front up in a paddock on its own, but to have a circuit like this, there'll be only a few selected places that are able to host it. So we look forward to seeing this series grow and grow and grow as we nurture kids in motocross. They've been riding motorbikes for years and years. They've come off the farms, of course. They've come through a motocross background with, of course, New Zealand. We've been absolutely inundated with world-class riders over the years, and this has flowed on now to see kids in our sport. Of course, it wasn't really until the late 70s that we actually saw purpose-built bikes for kids come onto the market. And whether it be a little trail bike or a full-fledged motocross bike, we've now seen literally tens of thousands of them across the country that have been part of our sport for many good years. So only growing and growing with it. And the cool thing about it is that if you ask these kids, they are having fun. And after all, if that's not what you're doing sport for, then you've certainly lost the whole idea behind it. So it is about fun, and motocross, I can tell you, it's a fun sport to be doing it when you're even at our aging years. Still awesome, and had the privilege of only riding as little as a couple of months ago, and that was for the first time in many, but it still doesn't take the buzz away from what is a cool adrenaline pumping sport. delighted that we're going to have Mad Mike join us as well today, folks. Mike Waddett, of course, we've had the privilege, Mike, for many years. He might be New Zealand's #1 drifting exponent, of course, a former freestyle motocross star as well. But he started in junior motocross just like these kids did, and it was his forerunner into extreme motorsport that's been so super successful with. So another great story to tell. Mr. Mad Mike on board, and we'll catch up with Mike a little later on. He's got a focus as well to look after his son Lincoln and his schoolmates as well here today. So here we are with this first up group, checkered flag out there. So we're getting a good opportunity to see our winner's circle. And it's interesting that Ollie Corbin, for whatever bit of bad luck that he had, he has been able to make up the ground. So Cole Davies, Ruben Smith and Cody Griffiths, just some of those up there. But more importantly, we're doing our best to talk about others in our lineup, like Connor Millsop, Bryn Reed and Sam Strawn. Other kids that have formed part of it here today, and whether they're out of Fielding, Napier, Tauranga Boys School, so there'll be another school to feature here today, Cambridge High School, and Rathkeel, Trident High School, of course. Now Trident, one of the few schools in the country that has actually had a motocross program and has done so, and very successfully, for a number of years. So it's formed effectively an elective and an option for kids to be involved with through the schools. And they used to pride themselves in having a very good annual camp at the end of the year when a lot of other class trips were taken. The motocross specialist kids had a camp, and they'd often get a very recognised coach or mentor along for some good work and cooperation with them as well. So great stories to tell. So there it is, our first moto up for competitive 12 to 14, 125 and 250, with our combined group of those out for race number 1. So
I'm like top 5 in New Zealand for racing motocross, but a lot of schools didn't recognise it. So, I mean, to be teamed up with Levi and see some of the other talent coming out of New Zealand is really wicked.
Thank you very much, Mike, today. An inspiration to us all. I've personally loved it, and I've had the privilege of calling you from those early days. That's a moon or two ago, mate.
But you've been doing it for a while, mate. I remember you calling me and doing the tricks and Taupere Supercross and Tokoroa Supercross, and like I said, I talk about Supercross a lot because Supercross used to be huge in the 90s. The fluoro gear still got my fit. I mean, Fox was my first sponsor, mate, and they used to give me a free pair of riding gear. Well, give my mum a free pair of riding gear for me to go out, and we had a fluoro barbed wire and all the fluoro cool colours, and it was fun. And I think I can't express it enough how awesome moto is. It's cool to see. Like Link, this is his first year racing. He's 13 now, but all his mates and stuff at school, Hodaki College, when he found out they had a motocross team and it wasn't just cricket, rugby or soccer, he was all for it. So whether it's a social aspect or whether you're chasing dreams to be a world champion, it's here in New Zealand.
Thank you, Mike. We'll get back to watch more of this racing, folks. Mr. Mike Waddett, Mad Mike, and yes, those 3 phases going backwards, of course, from that point of view. Now, of course, is Red Bull drifting star and World Ace, formula that, of course, FMX freestyle motocross. But where it all started, right here with these kids riding motocross. Well, back to our track and back to the competitive start, and quickly back into our box as well. It keeps us fit, if nothing else, as we travel around the pit area. Thank you, Dave. Thank you, Mike. Inspired by your contribution. And we've already had Bevan as president of the club, and hopefully we're catching up with a few others. Want to catch up with Shane King, our former world champion. He's with us here today. He's got some inspirational comments as well, I'm sure. So neat to see. All right, here we are with our sport moto ready to rock and looking out for it at the moment. Cole Davies, Nixon Parks, Ruben Smith, Fletcher Saunders. You'll start to get used to some of these names, but it's important to hear about some of the schools. Well, the highs and lows of sport are certainly something that we hear in the path of any sportsman along their journey. There's not too many world champions that have been born a world champion and stay that way all the time. They have their ups and downs along the way, and from a young age, we know what the ups and downs that riders had. And just been talking to some of them here today, for example, and they would normally come to a Taupo day and master it all right. Talked to one rider before, and he's had 2 little falls today. And it's just sort of the little things that they say that they're disappointed that they don't attain their standard, but it's from those little setbacks that make them a better rider for it. So nice to see that we've got very good rider performances overall for the day, and they are putting so much into the fact that they're competing for their school here today, and Dave's certainly outlining that here before. The panoramic, we've been watching of these riders and enjoying the 125s, and as we've noted, some riders that are riding this in their 85 bikes, even though it's actually eligible for 125cc, the word is up too, so you can actually have a smaller capacity bike to ride in a larger capacity class. So that's why we've got a different array of motorcycles in this one. What we call a competitive class, in other words, these guys are racing at a point scoring level, and we just use that word so that it draws the difference between those that are novice compared to those that are actually racing in a competitive class. And this is where they're, of course, scoring points as well for their schools, and deservedly so too. On board now, 17 in our race ace out there. Well, this Digger McEwen Park on the outskirts of Taupo was named after a founding person here in the Taupo region for motorcycle sport, Digger McEwen, and an area that's made out of a wilderness here. It was the earlier landfill area, plus the fact that it was literally trees and scrub on the outskirts of town. We're right at the back of Muro Street, which is the industrial area here. When we say industrial, of course, you've got vehicle yards and concrete plants and small manufacturing businesses, along with recyclers and car repairers and panel beaters, and the list goes on. So we're not part of a built-up area residential as you'd be for close to town. And with having the highway out here, it really gives us a nice infrastructure, being close to the exit and entry of the town to support a great event. And when you've got 200 to 300, 400 people turning up for some events, certainly means that you've got a lot of traffic around the region, and this part of the town caters for it so well. 2021 New Zealand Secondary Schools Motocross Championships, Digger McEwen Park today, and our leading line up there, 17 Orewa College's Cole Davies. Looking out to others like Nixon Parks and Reuben Smith, and Nixon coming out of Tawamuri High School, and for Reuben, another HPC, Hauraki Plains College. And talking to Mike, of course, that's where his boy Lincoln is from, and fantastic turnout. Amanda says, I've only got 18 today. Only got 18. I'm sure there's not another school that's got as many. It is a real focus on young people's education, and it's about life skills, and it happens to be a great sport as well. And for a bonus, it's a whole lot of fun. I've loved it for many years, riding a motorcycle, and long may the fun continue. Whether people do it on the road or the trails, of course. We're in this area here, for example, of the famous AFC Epic Trail Rides. Over 1,000 trail riding motorcyclists come to the Taupo region through the winter time once a month and ride these areas because they love the sport so much, and it's just another example of how it unfolds into our sport of mini and junior motocross. Mini coming from our kids' age of 4 through to 11 years, junior motocross also starting at 8 years and going through to 17, and senior motocross starting from 15. So there's actually an oversplash of those. So different ages, but different kids in different stages of their life and whatever they want to be. Mini, junior or senior motocross. How many champs this year at Christchurch? Staged by the Christchurch Off-Road Motorcycle Club, rocking weekend of the 9th and 10th of October. New Zealand Junior Motocross already been run, but it's for 2022 being staged in the Cargill for the first time in Southland for Anzac weekend, April 22, 23, 24, 2022. And of course our Senior Motocross Nationals, well, they kick off in the first week of February and go through to the last week of March. So over the period of about 7 weeks, we'll have 4 national championship events in the South Island and North Island. Those venues have not yet been confirmed, but that announcement will be out very shortly by Motorcycle New Zealand. So cool sport, cool events, and of course you've got many of the island championships and regional world championships and club level championships all to go on to those period of time, and a lot of great events tucked in there. Of course we've got MX Fest, the Sand Prix at Mercer, Auckland Champs, of course the famous Motocross Grand Prix at Woodville, another event slotted in for the last weekend, 29th and 30th of January 2022. More cool events under the calendar of Motorcycle New Zealand. And of course this, a brand new event. Now it's not new to have schools motocross. What is new is it's officially recognised New Zealand Championship under the auspices of the Sports Collective, and notice, of course, practising their charter as well, and also under the Secondary Schools Sports Council. And now we have in fact over 50 schools participating in what is now over 40 sports, and motocross officially added to that as well. Well, the sun comes out to shine in Taupo. A little bit of a wind chill factor when you're getting it coming in from the south and the west, cutting across the lake. It does have a cooling effect, but hey, it's not raining, and it's very temperate as far as once you're out of the wind to enjoy a fantastic day. Our sport motocross coming alive with this secondary schools championship event here today. Digger McEwen, yes, we're racing on Friday. It's the last day of the school term, term 2, so effectively for the school kids halfway through the year, and I'm sure it will be a nice way to celebrate the final day as they go into a couple of weeks of holiday. Over those couple of weeks of holiday, interesting to note that there's quite a bit of casual riding undertaken, and also a bit of coaching being done. So Method Moto, more details online, Method Moto, also to Wilder Park and Broxy Rider coaching and Triple Eight training. They're just 4 recognised training programs that I'm aware of that will be doing forms of training, coaching and riding over the school holiday period. And I did see another one as well. Just my apologies, it's just hit me, but I'm sure there will be others. So more details you can find out through your local friends, family, motorcycle club, bike shops, or of course at mnz.co.nz. So all right, back to our racing, HPC MX and the Pink High Vis as these riders blast their way through. 17, Cole Davies taking it out there for Orewa College. HPC's Ruben Smith, of course, on the honours board. Nixon Parks had just squeezed in front of him. Tawamudu born as well. Fletcher Saunders was another one as well out of Rotorua Lakes. Also, I think today they have Lewis out of Napier Boys, and Harbour's AJ Jordan, to name but some in our 12 to 14 at 125 250 competitive class. thank you to Nicole out of being able to look in New Zealand. And the New Zealand secondary schools next year is being run at Paddy Tonga. Now, Paddy Tonga is just up on the edge of Hauraki, so here in the top half of the North Island. So New Zealand secondary schools for the 1st of April next year, 1st of April. So this event was scheduled from last year, which is why it's been run about the same time. It was plagued by COVID. That's why we didn't have the inaugural event in 2020. So next year's secondary schools championship is on the 1st of April at Paddy Tonga. So Paddy Tonga, they run some great events. We've had senior motocross nationals there, Valley champs for many years. Also New Zealand TTs, although that's been held at a different venue. So a well-established club on the New Zealand moto scene. So Paddy Tonga running New Zealand secondary schools on the 1st of April next year. So you might want to already put that in your long-term calendar and preparing for events to follow New Zealand secondary schools. One can hope that with an extension to Sports Collective and New Zealand Secondary School Sports Council, that we can see it once again with Sky Sport Next film for you in this very auspicious event. So 2022, Paddy Tonga, the hosts, and we expect that after that we'll be probably rotating between the North and South Island. So for the South Island to see something as extensive of this in schools motocross, there has not been as much schools motocross in the South, but the ones that have been certainly have been very competitive and well sought after. So I'm sure some great secondary schools motocross to come in the Super South in years to follow. So bring it on with more secondary schools motocross. All right, 17 out the flying. This one again we look to is Cole Davies in this 125 competitive group in our younger age class today. Well, the lay of the land here at Taupo, of course, is quite different to any other track around the country. Even though we're on the sort of essential plateau, the volcanic soil around here, you've got other tracks such as Tokoroa and Rotorua within easily a 45-minute drive here. But they have quite different volcanic type soils. And as you look out with the CTAS live coverage, you're almost looking at what you think are white sand dunes or white sand beaches, as the soil is very light. But where the motocross is, of course, is where the dirt's getting turned over, because there's moisture in the ground from the great rains we've had here over the last 10 days. It means that you've got a very different track condition to what you have the dirt right next door to the track. And of course, with a little bit of grooming and dirt preparation, of course, there's some lovely green grass around the pits and amphitheatre and spectator club rooms and car park areas here at Digamacue, and it has been groomed into shape, a very picturesque circuit indeed. So a great story to tell. Of course, now much more fencing's been done, and also landscaping and mowing, and even, of course, here in the village green area, there's even irrigation for the green grass to grow all year round. So absolutely beautiful mecca of a place, and probably the TV coverage doesn't do it justice for just how good this place does look. Always warm, always heartening, a great purpose-built motocross venue, and there's very few of these in the country, and certainly there's nothing that matches the calibre of Taupo, and it's why we have the most prestigious events here over the last few years. I'm sure Taupo will be on the list of clubs for the up-and-coming Motocross Nationals that scheduled due out almost any day. I'm expecting that in the next, really, if it's not out in the next couple of weeks, I'll be surprised. So stay tuned to MNZ either on Facebook or go to their website for New Zealand Senior Motocross Nationals dates and venues to be out over the next few weeks. That'll be super exciting for a great summer to come. Nothing better than Motocross Nationals at the highest level, of course, with some of these riders to compete at that part of our sport. Of course, none of these guys are doing anything like an MX1, but certainly with the 254 strokes, it's an MX2. And there is, of course, 125, a great class, 125. We've had it in New Zealand for many years, and long may it continue. Hey, we had an opportunity as well to talk to some cool people today, but we haven't been able to catch up with everybody. But I want to recognise a few names that I was able to put together as well, just to give you an idea of the success that motorcycling has been for riders from New Zealand. And I go back to the famous trio of Speedway stars, Ivan Major, Barry Briggs and Ronnie Moore. Now, you don't have Moore Park Speedway in Christchurch for nothing, folks, because Ronnie Moore gave so much back to the sport, and to see him cemented there with the top of them, Barry Briggs, or Briggo as called, and of course the late Ivan Major, 6 times world champion. And this was a trio that really put New Zealand motorsport on the map. And I, for example, 2-time Sportsman of the Year. He was one of Speedway's iconic Hall of Famers. The list of credits go on from little old New Zealand. In 2 wheels and motorcycling, a few names I put together here: Bob Coleman, Hugh Anderson, Ginger Malloy, Kim Newcomb, Ken Cleghorn, Ivan Miller, Simon Crafer, Graham Crosby, Aaron Slight, Bruce Anstey, QSM, of course Josh Coppin, Shane King with us here today, Daryl King and Courtney Duncan. And what about, of course, Taupo's own Ben Townley, or add to that any of our other international riders. And not just some, there's probably an injustice that some that aren't mentioned there, but more importantly, so many New Zealand riders that have done particularly well overseas, and many of them, and the likes of from the road racing list there of Simon Crafer and Aaron Slight, actually started in junior motocross. This is the background. This is how you learn how to control the bike, and this is how you learn to get the basics and where you get the buzz for speed and how you want to go further and go faster, and you learn about bike preparation and discipline and training. I remember they did a sport, a multi-sport kind of event for sports athletes, and back in Aaron Slight day, he was a match for what is now an All Black coach in Scott McLeod. And it was just unheard of to think that, well, this guy, Scott McLeod, of course, he's an All Black. He's going to be way fitter, faster and stronger than any little motorcyclist, but Aaron matched him every step of the way, because fitness is just a huge part of motorcycling. And after all, when you've been thrown around by a motorcycle, when it's kicking and bucking out there, if you can't hold on to it and control it, you're not going too far too fast. So it's a neat story about our sport, and a huge amount of names, and that they all tell a story themselves. And of course, now we're up to 30 inductees into the New Zealand Motorcycling Hall of Fame. It's a real prestigious place for the true elite, and we've inducted this year a further 8 participants into that elite body. So the Hall of Fame, as it is robustly and correctly called, something pretty special. And many of those names of which we mentioned, of course, are in exactly that Hall of Fame. Bob Coleman, sorry Bob, my apologies, get the correct name in there, Rod Coleman, and that was, what do we say, 1953 Isle of Man TT winner. You know, those kind of stories, just so special about our country, about our sport, about motorcycling. So there we are. And I'd encourage you to look at the Richard Driver video on Love, Loss and Speed for Kim Newcomb. What a story to tell, and what a special moment when we inducted him posthumously into the Hall of Fame this year. So well done, Motorcycling New Zealand. You've got a great bit of credit and history for the way you've respected those gone before, and certainly luckily still many that are around today. What a great establishment, and long may it continue. All right, back to our racing as we get an idea. Of course, this is a competitive class, but for our younger riders, we haven't had as much focus on them as we have for our older riders today. So these are certainly the guys stepping on the way up. And I can tell you what, folks, the number 17 to lead this field, Cole Davies, this man is going places. Man, he's going places far and fast. this guy's going to be one of our greats. There is no two ways about it. He didn't win New Zealand Mini Championships at 6, 7 and 8 years of age for nothing, 3 years in a row, and he's certainly stacked together some other magnificent performances. Unfortunately out and injured for New Zealand juniors, so couldn't get the credit he deserved there, but don't worry, it's only the early times, and he might be the front runner here. But soon, of course, he'll be up and amongst the elite of our sport for sure. So look out for that name, Cole Davies.